Hello and welcome to another video. Today we have a Gigabyte board on our bench. Let's see, what's the model number? I think this is some B450 one. Is it written on the back or on the front? B450 Aorus Elite. I had multiple of these already. Most of the time they had problems with their BIOSes actually. Yeah. But let's have a look what is wrong with this one. I do not have any information on this board. Why it is faulty and why it was sold. And I also don't have any accessories, no history, nothing on this. So let's get at least already the mounting for the cooler off of here, so we can have a better look at this board. And we're going to start with our usual checks of resistances of the main power adapter for the 24 pin, so that there aren't any shorts, and we're going to be starting this up with something short circuited. So let's go into ohms range and let's start on the 24 pin here. We're going to put our black probe onto a good ground, and then we're going to start with 3.3 at the bottom right here. Let's see, we have kilo ohms, almost a kilo ohm, 700 ohms should be fine. The fourth one from the top left is 5 VSB, kilo ohms and rising. The second one from the top is 12 volts, kilo ohms and rising. And this one to the right of it is 5 volts, also kilo ohms. That is very good. Let's go then to the 12 pin for the CPU power. 12 volts, 8 pin for the CPU power. We're going to check them to each other, and they have high resistance. And you want to locate the tab. Then you want to take the closer pin to that, and then you need to probe the inductors of the VRM in order to check if any MOSFETs are blown through. This time I need to do it on the back side of the board, and there's high resistance. Yeah, they are not connected to each other. So we don't have a major rail short here in this case. And my camera froze. Let me quickly readjust that. Okay, camera is back. Let's see again. Let's go for the voltage of the battery here. And battery has 306 volts. That looks fine. Let's go for some resistances again. Let's see. As soon I now just go over some inductors that I see, and just going to check their resistances. And all I want to see is to have something around kilo ohms and just not have it shorted. And there you can also check linear regulators that you see, and just go around, have a quick check for the first time, just to see if there's anything obvious already. But everything seems fine so far. So I'd say we put some power into this, put a CPU into here, and see how this board behaves, see what the passive power consumption of this board is going to be. And yeah, and then go from there. So let's go see for its passive power consumption. We have 200, almost 300 milliamps. That's kind of high. It seems like it's already oh no, that's the breathing of the LEDs. Yeah, okay, never mind. That's probably fine. That's probably just we have that because of the LEDs that are breathing. We have that changing power consumption. Let's see now if we have a reaction to the power button. And we do have a reaction to the power button. We cycle from CPU to RAM. Okay, let's put RAM into here then. And let's see now. CPU, RAM, 2.4 amps. Are we going VGA? Do we get a beep? Okay, this is an APU in here, so we might get a post screen. Let's see then here. If we get a post screen, let's put a cooler onto the CPU because it is running currently. Let's restart. So we have DRAM, we have VGA. Let's see if it recognizes it now. Seems to be that we are stuck on a VGA LED. The big question now when you have a VGA LED is, do you have indication on your keyboard? So we need to plug in a keyboard in order to see if this board booted or not. And what you want to check is the numlock. And the numlock is not reacting. So this is actually frozen. We currently have a 2200G in there. Let's try a different CPU. just to be sure. Let's go for 3000G. And if that also doesn't work, let's go then afterwards for a CPU without graphics integrated, and then put a separate graphics card into here. But let's now try with the 3000G. What it's going to say to that. Definitely starts up. Let's see, VGA again. And do we get a picture this time? 4 amps, this looks better. 2.7, 2.8, restarting. Okay, it's cycling now. And there it is. Okay, it just didn't like that CPU. So big question, is there anything even wrong with this board? Let me get a SSD into here and see if it goes into Windows then, because maybe we don't even have a fault here. So we're now going into Windows. What I am interested in, if all of the USB is working, if we get audio, and if we have Ethernet. Ethernet, I can already see that we have activity. And USB, I see that the keyboard has indication on its numlock. So all of that is working. So the Ethernet works and all of the USBs work. Let's turn this off and see if all 4 DIMMs of RAM are being recognized in here. Because I'm still trying to figure out why this is on my bench, to be honest. Because it should have been faulty. Maybe someone had a wrong processor for the BIOS here. Because I currently cannot make out any fault with this. So let's see if we get 4 DIMMs of RAM working in here. So there seems to be actually something wrong with this board. I tried VGA in here, so a dedicated graphics card, and I cannot get it to boot. I've tried now different CPUs, tried both of these slots off of the PCIe slots, and I've tried different GPUs, and I cannot get it to boot. I get a stuck VGA. So we might have a fault after all, that there's no PCIe devices recognized in here. This can be multiple factors, like that the PCIe lanes are broken, but I wouldn't think that if on both of the slots it isn't recognized. What I can imagine then, that the PCIe reset signal is actually not reaching the VGA cards, or like the graphics cards, which is an issue that I have not encountered like this before. So yeah, so with the GPU in here and an APU, I actually cannot get a picture out of the graphics card. So it seems to be that I can only get a picture through the integrated APU. So what I would want to do, the first thing that can cause something like this is the actual BIOS. So you can have it that a BIOS is partially bricked, that you have a BIOS that partially only works. And in this case, it might be that our PCIe devices, because of that, aren't recognized properly. So what I would want to try is, this is the great thing about having different CPUs and APUs, is you can boot into here with an APU, and we can use the internal flashing of this. For the BIOS, we can use the QFlash utility in order to flash this board. So let me prepare a USB stick, a pen drive, and we're going to see if we can then update this BIOS and see if that can solve our PCIe problem. So now let's go into QFlash and actually update this BIOS here that we have. And it's now verifying the BIOS file. And let's start this now. We are updating now. We're going to go from, let's see what version, from the 7th 11th of 2024, we're going to a one that is from the 12th of August of 2025. So we basically almost do a full year, or basically do a full year, and we go from F67B to F67H, and see if this will help our board to recognize VGA now, after having done a clean install of the BIOS. This is not completely clean, sadly. Flashing BIOSes like this can always still have problems with them. To actually have a clean BIOS, you will need to take off the chip and flash the file on it itself by yourself. But this can already do the job. So we're going to try with the easy part. We're going to try to flash this through the BIOS. If this is a software issue, this could be a hardware issue, actually, because none of the ports are working. But we're first going to be trying that, and after that, if that doesn't work, we might need to look for some physical damage, that there might be some resistor or something similar knocked off, in order why we are not getting any recognition of PCIe devices. But for now, let's try the BIOS in order to see if the VGA is going to be fixed like that. So it's done. Let's reboot now. So it's starting by itself now. We now want to get into BIOS, and as soon as we are in BIOS, I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to be plugging in a GPU into here to see if we can get recognition for the CPU. So let's wait for the new BIOS to load once. And there's our new BIOS coming in. Okay, it didn't. It tried to go past the BIOS. Okay, that's not a problem. Let's turn this off now, and let's try a GPU into here and see if we can now get recognition out of this. So let's turn on and see if this can boot now with a GPU in here. And it seems to be that we are still stuck. It does not want to boot with a graphics card in here. Let's get a different graphics card, and I also want to try both of these slots once more, just to be sure. I went for different configurations with CPU, GPU, and so on and so forth, and I just cannot get a video output through a GPU. So this is probably why this board is here. So we have two options now. I want to go first now to have a look if there's any physical damage around this board. If I can see some resistor maybe missing for the PCIe reset or similar things like that. And what we can also do here is, if we take this adapter that I have to check for PCIe lanes, this one needs 12 volts connected to it in order to show if we have good connection to the CPU. So if we have a look, we have all of the connections, all of the LEDs are lit up. So it's not a problem between the connection of the CPU and the PCIe slot. So I would think that we will probably have a problem with the reset signal that is supposed to come, I think, from the SIO or the PCH. So I would want to look for knocked off components here, if there are any somewhere. And especially in the area around the PCIe slots, obviously. So let me go under the microscope and have a look at that. So I found a resistor. Have a good look when I'm reflowing this now. This is actually crooked. If you can see that resistor is crooked, and I'm trying to reflow it now. And we might have to check if this has still the right value to it. Yeah, you can see there partially a part of it came off of the bottom, but it is in place now. The question now is if that resistor had survived whatever happened to it. This might be the problem. This might have nothing to do with it though. So yeah, we will have to check that for what this is responsible. But now it is in place, and let's check for its resistance then, what this is. Okay, not getting anything in my 20k ohms range. Let's see for 200k. 100k ohm resistor, that looks fine. Okay, so the resistor probably now is properly in place. And yeah, I do not know what this was for, but let's leave it at that for now. I will have a good look around if I can see anything more that is suspicious to me. And yeah, go from there. So we definitely have some damage around this BIOS chip. A lot not looking good here. It even wonders me that we were able to post at all. And I think we're going to go through the route of flashing this ourselves, taking the chip off, making sure that it has a good dump on it, just to be sure, because I do not trust whatever is on this chip here. And the soldering also I do not trust. I haven't found anything else so far on the board that looks wrong, but this could be a reason. So let me flux this up, get a adapter where I can solder this onto, and get some leaded solder on all of these pins in order to lower its melting point, that we can take it off easier with the hot air. So let's get leaded solder on all of the pins with a good amount of flux. This will make it easier. So later we can confirm then the soldering with doing it ourselves, that it's properly on here, and confirm the contents that are on here. Let me get an adapter board. So let's take this off now. The orientation is with the top left having pin 1. It's also marked on the board. Like that, I just removed, and I'm going to be soldering onto my adapter. And the area doesn't look as bad as I thought, to be honest. I thought it would be worse. Let's clean it off while we have the option to, when there's no chip on there, to get an actual very clean look at everything. So we can clearly see, at some point this was supposed to be a dual BIOS setup, but they scratched that. And yeah, the pads look still fine. Everything is attached. All of them have their connection in each way. So I'm not too worried about that. So if we can confirm the content of the chip, proper content on there, I think the BIOS shouldn't be a problem then. And then I'll have to see for the reset signal and similar things, in order why our PCIe cards aren't working here. So let's go over to the PC and see for the BIOS flash. So let's see now if it recognizes our chip. We want 1.8 volts. And it recognized the chip. Let's read its memory to buffer. So we definitely know the BIOS is at least partially working, because because we were able to boot with the APUs. But let me get a different BIOS that we had, and I will try to flash it onto here. So obviously the BIOS structure looks fine because it was working. Let's go into the Aorus Elite and take this time the G instead of the H file, and let's flash this onto here. So we definitely have a clean flash for this board. So our BIOS is being programmed, and it is now verifying. So let's see to put back this chip after the verification, and hope that we get our ability back to use our PCIe devices. So the chip is soldered on, and just for good measure, I'm going to add a little bit of more flux onto the pins, and we're going to go quickly over them with our soldering iron. There should be enough solder on there, but just getting a good connection with a fresh amount of flux. Just like that. All clean it well. And let's now get our cleaning sponges once more, clean the area up, and hope that we have solved our problem here. So everything nice and clean. Let's go to the overview and hope for the best here. We are now running a 3100 together with a, what is it, GT3 710 or something like that. Let's see if this now gives us a actual VGA output. And weirdly enough, the CPU LED is always on now, and I'm not getting any cycling anymore out of it, sadly, for whatever reason. And I'm not getting a boot. So yeah, this PCIe issue seems to be something more severe here. And I cannot tell you what that could be so far. So I was actually able to find some non-octave components. As you can see, we have a capacitor on the backside that is missing here, and a resistor right here. And this is important because this is, as far as I know, for the signals for the PCIe. I do not know how this can be broken when we use the tester, because the tester showed that all of those should be fine, which is very weird. I'm not too sure if these are like maybe for the second slot or something. But yeah, we will definitely have to replace that one capacitor there, and whatever resistor that is, I will have to get into board view and have a good look. Also then, I wanted to have a look at other things around the backside. If we already have damage at one place, there could be damage at other places as well. But I couldn't seem to find any damage, any further damage. This is, for example, behind the PCH, but it seems to be completely fine here. So I'm just going to take a board view of this. I'm going to find out what that capacitor is supposed to be, and that resistor also, so I can fit a proper replacement into here. So let me have a look. So let's get onto the board and let's see here. We need a 0.22 microfarad, 6.3 volts, and we also need a 196 ohm resistor. Interesting. So it's this resistor right here, 196 ohms. We might need to find an exact value then and get one of these capacitors. So let me have a look on donor boards what I can find. So actually on a donor board I was able to find exactly these resistors. There are resistors for 196 ohms on a MSI board, and the PCIe capacitors are also 0.22 microfarads. So this seems to be something that is related to AM4 that is necessary for this to work. So let's get one of these resistors off of here and put it onto our donor board, onto our receiving board. So there I've gotten the resistor. Let's take this resistor right here, put it into place, get some flux in here. It really wants to stay upside down. Well, let's get some flux, clean up the solder part so that this can be connected here. Just like that. And if you would now want to go on the right way, that would be great. And not stick to my soldering tip. Just like that. Just like that is fine. We will reflow this also, but let's first get also a capacitor off of the PCIe of this other board. Let's instantly prepare the place so I can easily put it into here. So dab of flux. Let's get rid of the remains of this old capacitor. Oh, and I just took off the... Yeah, it doesn't matter. We're going to be changing them in pairs. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe not. I will change them. Because after having done... Let's just change 2 out, just to be sure. They are a little bit bigger in size, but we shall manage. Because they have the same values, that is what is important. They have the same capacitance and same voltage rating. So let's now get them reflowed into their places. Now they should be fine. Let's move over to the resistor, just for good measure. And having it reflowed as well. And now we should be fine with our components here. 2 capacitors replaced in place and that one resistor. Let's clean up the area again. Area is looking nice and clean. And let's now have a look if we now can find anything. If this has brought us to where we want to be. So again, our 3100 in here. And let's now see if we now can get a picture out of the VGA here. Sadly, still no luck on this one. Even with those replaced components, I cannot get a VGA out of my graphics card. So no video output out of my graphics cards. Oh, this board has a lot of faults. Interesting. Because we had multiple components now that we had to replace. And from how this video began, from it actually working with APUs and posting, I didn't think that we are going to get onto this level of diagnosis for the recognition of this system, or for the recognition of GPUs. It shouldn't matter, but I'm going to strip down the RAM. Shouldn't make a difference for the VGA, but yeah, I'm just going to do it. And I've tried different CPUs now, and we now have a verified good BIOS. So next up, I need to look into the PCIe reset signal. And one more thing that we can do is we can use a riser in order to test if we have the same issue with the PCIe 1.0 ones. So there are also PCIe 1.0 connectors, and what we can do is we can plug GPUs into them. So I have now the GPU through a mining riser. Let's see now if we now get any further with this. But yep, it seems to be a problem of every single slot. So all of the PCIe is not working. Interestingly enough, M.2 is working. Because M.2 is basically also only PCIe. None of these slots are working. So I will have to have a good look into the board view and see if I can find something related to the reset signal maybe. So I've actually found something and I didn't record it. You can see marks here that there was some soldering. I replaced this resistor right here. This was a 22k ohm resistor. And there's also stuff from PCIe reset here. And I saw that some work has been done here, and I've reflowed these and I've replaced that resistor. That resistor was looking awful. If I can find footage of that, I will put it in, that this wasn't looking great. And now I have really interesting behavior out of this board. Have a good look. So we now have a GPU in here, and if I now turn this on, the weird thing is the CPU LED always stays on now for whatever reason. But we have a look at the post screen now. We can see the power consumption is very similar to what we had before, 3.9 amps. And all of a sudden we get a VGA LED, and we actually get a post. Now we have actual signal out of there. So there was probably some resistor or capacitor that wasn't soldered properly on the PCIe reset lane. So someone had replaced components there. Like we saw, there's many things being done to this board. And someone has replaced a component and not soldered it into place correctly. And with me reflowing that, it has made it correct. So I can show you, let me show you in the board view what that was to give you a better look at that. And yeah, this took me so long to find. Let me show you in the board view. Have a good look right here. It was this resistor right here. That is the RSM-RST. This is a reset signal for the CPU. And then it was this resistor right here, PCIe RST. And I started to look at this area because this is what resets the pin or the PCIe device. So this connects to the M.2 sockets and also through this 33 ohm resistor right here to the CPU. So this is why I started to look at this area, and this one was looking bad and I replaced it and reflowed the others, and that helped the situation. Now we get recognition out of that. So sadly, very unsatisfying ending to this video, where I really couldn't really show what I've done, because I really didn't think that it would make any difference for us here, but it did. So yeah, if you have problems with every single slot, you need to look at the PCIe reset signal. If you only have a problem with a single slot, you need to look at the PCIe lanes of that individual slot. But in this case, because every single one had a problem, we had to take a look at the PCIe reset signal, because the reset signal is connected to all of the PCIe and even the M.2. What I don't understand is why we had M.2 recognition but didn't have the recognition for the GPU. That is very weird to me, and I cannot understand why that was. Because as far as I know, most of the things are shared between the M.2 and the PCIe. So yeah, this turned out to be a very long repair. And then we also had all of the knocked off components on the backside and the crooked component on top of the CPU. Like, this was a very weird mainboard. There was a lot of previous work done to this. And we had the BIOS being flashed. Something was very weird with this. But now, I hope you still could learn something from this. From taking out, if you have a PCIe issue, how you can go further from that. I cannot explain to you why that happened with the CPU LED. At some point when we flashed the BIOS or changed the BIOS, the LEDs got bricked for the debugging for whatever reason, even though the BIOS is definitely okay and good on here. But yeah, it got bricked by that. But now, thankfully, the GPUs are recognized in here and this board is actually working. So, sorry for the scrambled video. I still hope you enjoyed it, you learned something from this. So, I was actually done recording this video. And then I went for another test for the board. And yeah, I actually already said goodbye and everything, but the board does not want to boot anymore. I haven't really changed anything. And all of a sudden it doesn't like to boot anymore. Only with a couple of retries, when you turn it off completely, you sometimes get a boot out of it. But only sometimes. I have a weird issue where the CPU fan stops to spin even though the board is still on. Like, this should never go into 0 RPM mode. Like, there's something so weird with this board. Now I cannot get it to boot at all. And another even more weird thing is when you plug a battery into here. Listen to what happens then. The board starts up. The clicking that you hear is the speaker that keeps clicking for whatever reason. But the board, look at the power consumption, how it's cycling. And if I now press it, the clicking goes away. And we go back to the state where it doesn't recognize the GPU. And the fan, for whatever reason, stops spinning. And it's just stuck at that point. And when I take out the GPU, let's put it into the other slot. Again, because we have power consumption already, even though I didn't press the power button for whatever reason. We have that clicking. And then when I push the power button, it reacts to that. But there's nothing happening. We are not getting into posting. So putting it back. And this time, it didn't do that. And this time, it's posting. We should get a post screen probably. There's a post screen all of a sudden. And this time with a battery in it. So something is very weird. And I do not have a reaction to the power button. Like, the board is on now. And when I try to turn it off via the power button, I'm pressing it now. I keep holding it. Nothing happens. It doesn't react to the power button. Only when I cycle it through here, through the PS on itself. And let's see this time. And this time it decides to post for whatever reason. Yep, and still no reaction to the power button. But we have a reaction when we first turn it on. When we first turn it on and then press the power button, it reacts to that, but not after that anymore. So, because it has weird behavior with the battery in it, I would want to trace. I went ahead and traced a little bit for the for where the battery voltage is going. And let's have a look at the microscope together. So the big problem is the components responsible for the battery are actually going under the PCIe slot here. And they are very hard to see and to do anything with. So you cannot really work on them. And I've noticed that on this chip right here, that is being powered through the battery as well, we have a BIOS chip or firmware chip that has been soldered to. So someone had been tinkering with this, with this SIO. And I believe that this is one of the big problems why this isn't working. Like you can see for these resistors right there, for the chip itself, that someone has been on here. And the big problem is you cannot get that firmware that belongs onto this chip. This is specific to this board, and you would have to get another board that is working and get the firmware off of that in order to do something with this BIOS. And weirdly to me is also that there's even another ITE chip here. Like if we have a look through the polarizer, we can now see its markings. We have another one here. So we have one here. Let's turn the polarizer so we can see this as well. Okay, this is just very hard to see at all, even with the polarizer. We have that, and then we have the big SIO here as well, 8686. Yeah, so someone has been messing with that, trying to figure this board probably out as well. And yeah, we've found multiple things wrong on this board already. And still there's something that just isn't right here. And yeah, I've spent hours on this, and I'm just sick of this board, to be honest. If you have any idea how to get this dump off of this for this chip, the right one, let me know. And if you have any suggestions more what there could be wrong with this board, let me also know. And yeah, as I said, a big problem is tracing the voltage for the battery is really hard, because those are the components that are responsible for them, and there are even more, and they are under this this slot. Even though the slot is only like an X4 one, they've made it full size, and yeah, it put components under there, which is awful to do. So to give you an understanding how many components there actually are under here, we have the battery voltage. That goes through this resistor right here. We can see this resistor, and then we can see the top of these components here. And there's two more devices under here that at the end power also this EC chip right here. You can see these voltages going to here, and then at the end going into the EC chip here. So yeah, this is like, how are you supposed to work with that? You would need to replace or take out this one completely in order to check components here to do this. And yeah, this is called an MCU, this is an ECU, and this has, there you can see the BIOS chip and the actual SIO. So yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm giving up on this repair. This was a really scrambled video, but this board has me beaten. I would really want to find out if replacing the firmware that is in here could help this board to work properly. And interestingly enough, it does work properly as soon as you get into Windows once, especially with APUs that booted every single time. Just with dedicated graphics cards, it has its problems. And as soon as you're on Windows, everything is working fine, and you can actually do things. So yeah, I'm beyond anything. If you have any suggestions for me, please let me know on what to do on this board, because also the big problem is these chips are really hard to come by. I don't think that the chip necessarily will be faulty, but I really don't trust whatever is being put onto this flash chip of it. Yeah. And if you have any more suggestions for the weird issues that we have, sadly, just I won't be able to get to these components, I think, though. That is one of the problems. So I hope you still could take something from this video, even though it is scrambled like that. I'm just tired of this board. I cannot think of anything else to do with it. After we found multiple times knocked off components on this, replaced a few components, and did the BIOS flash and everything, just such a weird behavior that is so hard to trace and fault find. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.